You tell me when you're ready.
All right, we have everyone removed.
Thank you. All right, we're now in an executive session, and we will move to the first item of the executive session agenda, and that is the consent calendar. And by the way, I did not receive any notices that anybody needs to be removed or needs to make any declarations before going into executive session, so I think everything's good to go. So on the executive session consent calendar, Vice Chair Fiscum, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I do. I hereby move that the commission approve the consent calendar for the executive session dated March 22, 2024.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments on Vice Chair Fiscum's motion? Seeing none, Molly will call for the vote.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum.
Aye.
Commissioner Payne.
Aye.
Commissioner Newell.
Aye.
Commissioner Mason.
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 37. And we'll allow, let's see, I don't believe that the respondent is attending. Is that correct?
We actually do have John Weston who's joining right now.
Okay, thank you.
And his attorney.
His attorney was also, I have not seen him rejoin.
Okay, I did. I just emailed him to rejoin. I only found out a half hour ago he was going to be joining. So.
Okay. Hello, Mr. West. Welcome. Can you hear us? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. Thank you kindly. Thank you for being with us today. Now is the moment to have your matter heard before us, and I'll tell you what will happen procedurally is we will first have the investigator, Investigator Murrieta, provide a report to the commission. The commission may have some questions of Investigator Murrieta, and then we will you will have an opportunity to give a response as well. Considering our agenda today, we do ask that you be efficient with your time. We may have some questions for you as well. And then after that, the commission will make a decision as to what to do with your matter. And either way, we're not making a substantive, definitive decision today on your matter. It's just a decision whether to proceed further or not. So that's how things will proceed. And with that said, we'll now turn to Ms. Murrieta.
Okay. There's something popped up. It said one or more persons was waiting in the lobby. Are they not?
They are not part of
Not
your.
product.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. This is Investigator Hillary Murrieta. Agenda item 37 in your books is a preliminary review report for John West, a commissioner for the Board of Commissioners for Josephine County. The complaint alleges that Mr. West was faced with a conflict of interest because suspension of JCC Chapter 16.76.060 would or could financially benefit his businesses, Axis Development and Westlands Contracting. Because Axis Development's two properties are located within rural metros fire protection district, should Mr. West or Axis Development apply for a permit to develop with JCC Chapter 16.76.060 in effect, Axis Development would be required to purchase fire protection service from a rural metro private company. By suspending the JCC chapter, had Mr. West applied for a permit to develop, he would have avoided a financial detriment since Mr. West would not have been required to purchase private fire protection. At the time the vote to suspend JCC chapter was made, Mr. West was seeking to sell lots for his Russell Roads Heights subdivision and was actively developing the Merlin Heights subdivision. For the Merlin Heights subdivision, Mr. West had an approved subdivision application. One of the approval criteria was compliance with the JCC chapter, including 16.76.060. The suspension of the code may have made it cheaper to develop the property because he would no longer have to pay for fire service as part of his development activities. Sorry, just 1 second. I apologize. His attorney just emailed me. He's having issues with the link. Send that to him.
Take a minute to. see
Okay,
if we
yeah, I
get-
apologize just to make sure that he has it.
Thank you for zooming in. That helps us that are online. That's perfect. Perfect. Excellent. That helps us, those who are online, to see the room a little bit better.
Do you want me to give it a minute to see if he?
Yeah, we'll just give it a few
Okay,
seconds
thank you.
here and then we'll proceed.
Thank you, Chair. So bad, lady.
We won't take too long waiting, but
Okay,
let's give it 30 more seconds, then you can
Okay.
proceed.
Do you want to give him my email address so I can work with him? He needs help.
Yeah.
I just resent him the link. He said he's gonna try and restart his computer, so maybe we should just
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the suspension of the code may have made it cheaper to develop the property because he would no longer have to pay for, or his business, for fire service as part of the development activities. For the Russell Road Heights division, it may also have allowed him to forgo payment of fire service to those lots. It may also have made the lots of a subdivision more desirable to develop because of the reduced compliance cost. As a result, at the time of the vote to suspend JCC Chapter 16.76.060 was made, Mr. West was presented with an actual conflict of interest. The final plat approval for the Merlin Heights subdivision required compliance with the Josephine County Code. The subdivision/tentative plan decision appears to have required compliance with the JCC 16.76 as criteria for receiving final plat approval for the county. The vote to suspend the code removed this compliance requirement for the final plat approval process and benefit Mr. West's development. The result is that he could receive the financial benefit of not having to comply with this code compliance provision as a condition of the final plat approval. Therefore, at the time of the suspension vote, Mr. West would be met with a potential conflict of interest related to his Merlin Heights final plat. And based on the information obtained during the preliminary review, it appears that Mr. West was faced with both actual and potential conflicts of interest when he voted to suspend the JCC chapter. Additionally, at the time he voted to suspend the code diversions, the decisions would likely impact his subdivisions by allowing him to forego payment for his fire service, make his development cheaper, and or make his lots more desirable because of the reduced compliance cost. As a result, it appears Mr. West may have used his official position for a financial benefit or to avoid a financial detriment by voting to suspend the JCC chapter. Should this case move to investigation, commission staff would look further into how the suspension financially affected his subdivisions or how much money his businesses ended up saving. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Murrieta. Mr. King, welcome. We're sorry that you had some technical difficulties. Investigator Murrieta just gave her report, and now it's the commission's opportunity to ask of her any questions. Commissioners, any questions that you might have for Investigator Murrieta? Seeing none, it will.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. What would help me, thank you, by the way. What would help me is if our investigator would just repeat one more quick time what she said toward the end of her report, which is what she would need to investigate next were we to move forward. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fiska. Commission staff would look further into how the suspension financially affected his subdivisions or how much money his business ended up saving as a result of the suspension of the code chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a minute, Mr. King. Now's the opportunity for Commissioner West or you to respond. And will that be you, Commissioner West, or will your attorney be speaking for you?
I'll let my attorney speak for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. King. Go ahead.
Thank you, commissioners, and good morning. I have a should be pretty short statement to make, but we think that the Oregon Government Ethics Commission should dismiss the complaint brought against Mr. West because there are no conflicts of interest and not even a hypothetical benefit could have resulted in Mr. West from his actions as a commissioner to vote on the temporary suspension of the ordinance. First off, Mr. West and his companies don't engage in building structures. They are dirt movers. They move, they clear land for sale to others. The permit approval required by the ordinance in question applies only to the development of structures and is not applicable to Mr. West or his companies or the work they do. Regardless, the suspension of the ordinance had no impact to Mr. West because, as conceded by the DLCD, the rural lands owned by Mr. West and approximately 40,000 other Josephine County rural property owners already have sufficient fire protection service courtesy of the Oregon Department of Forestry. Everyone who owns rural land in Josephine County as a part of their mandatory property taxes pays for the wildland fire coverage from the ODF. Under both the current and previous versions of the ordinance, all the ordinance requires is that a rural property owner developing a new structure, whether that's an ADU, a barn, a mother-in-law suite, or a new home, anything like that, show the fire marshal a copy of their property tax statement showing they pay for the already mandatory wildlife fire protection coverage provided by the ODF. Even if the ordinance were applicable to Mr. West, there's no cost of compliance with the ordinance because he already pays those mandatory property taxes. And the DLCD, they did file an appeal of the suspension, but they dropped that and conceded that the ODF fire protection services are sufficient and comply with the state statutes and the ordinance in question. I also wanted to point out that the commissioners, including Mr. West, suspended the ordinance because they were trying to figure out if it was legal to just have one fire service in the county. The preliminary review report describes the result of suspending the ordinance as follows. It describes it, the result of the suspension of the code provision was that property owners would not need to show proof of being in a fire district, having contract with a fire protection service provider, or developing an on-site protection plan. It would also allow existing homeowners with rural metro contracts to cancel service for the suspension period. This is incorrect. As noted above, or as noted, all rural property owners are required by law to pay for the ODF fire protection services through their property taxes, and there is no way to cancel ODF fire protection services. Furthermore, the issue of showing proof of being in a fire district is largely superfluous since all the rural property owners are already required by law to have ODF fire protection services through the property taxes. I have just a little bit more. The report also cites the DLCD appeal memo, which I mentioned earlier, and states that taxes on land for the Oregon Department of Forestry is not a substitute for local fire protection because the ODF does not provide structural fire services. This is incorrect, and the DLCD has already conceded the issue and dropped the appeal. Basically, there's no financial impact to Mr. West or his companies at all. He was never required to purchase private fire protection services from rural metro, and suspension of the code did not change that. The financial benefits outlined in the report are that it may have made it cheaper to develop property because he would no longer have to pay for fire service. Again, as mentioned, that doesn't make any sense. He already had to pay for fire protection service, and he already was paying. It also says, with respect to the Russell Road Heights subdivision, that it may have allowed him to forego payment of fire service for those lots. Again, the same thing applies. It says it also would have made the lots more desirable to develop because of the reduced compliance cost. There's no compliance cost here. All that's required is that you show your property taxes to the fire marshal. There's no cost associated with it. There's no cost even for the form. Russell Roads Heights, one of the properties mentioned, was already completed and compliant as of 3 years ago. So there really is no financial benefit, even a hypothetical financial benefit to Mr. West, and resulting from the suspension of the ordinance. And frankly, it's inapplicable to him anyway because he's not in the business of building structures. So we'd ask that the commission dismiss it at this point.
Mr. King, thank you for your response. We appreciate it. Commissioners, do any of you have any questions for Mr. King or for Commissioner West?
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Questions, if I might. for Mr. King. So, Commissioner West's company was paying for the ODF coverage on their property tax statements while he was developing, while he's, as you say, moving the dirt.
Yes.
And then as a follow-up to that, under the suspension, when those lots were sold and structures were built on them, the ordinance was not suspended for those structures, or how does that work?
Well, Mr. West actually didn't do anything development-wise or selling-wise during the suspension. The suspension lasted about 90 days, I believe, maybe a little bit less. So if you're asking what happened during the suspension, the answer is nothing. But I'm not sure maybe if you could rephrase your question if I'm not understanding what your question is.
Well, you're saying, I guess my question is, you're saying that Mr. West doesn't build structures, which I understand that. But the people that would the suspension have applied to the people who did build the structure? But what I'm hearing is that the suspension only lasted 90 days and no structures were built. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, related to Mr. West, yes, that's true. The suspension basically, the only thing the suspension does is during that 90-day period, you wouldn't have to take your property tax form to the fire marshal to get the fire marshal's approval. Obviously, it would have to be approved on either side of the suspension. But during that time, you wouldn't have to take the form in basically to get it approved. And the only reason for the suspension in the first place was because one of the fire service, private fire services in Josephine County, one of only two, closed down, and so it was no longer. There was only one fire service remaining, and the commissioners weren't sure what the legal status of some of the ordinances they had in place and whether that was frankly legal to have only one private fire protection service. The DLCD ultimately, they appealed that decision by the commissioners, but then they later withdrew the appeal because they conceded that ODF fire protection services, which are mandatory through the property taxes, are sufficient to meet the burden of the statute and the ordinance.
Thank you.
Commissioner Payne, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. King, when you say the DLC, sorry, I might be getting that acronym wrong. The DLDC, is that correct? Conceded an issue in withdrawing their appeal. Did they do that in writing, or are you assuming that by withdrawing they conceded an issue? I'm wondering where we can find that concession on the record.
Yeah, so that's something there was no adjudication. There was no adjudication decision. Basically, it was that was the reason that the DLCD gave for withdrawing the complaint. It's my understanding, or withdrawing the appeal.
Understanding, and is there anywhere in writing that we can find that concession on the record?
I would have to. I defer to Mr. West on that.
So another commissioner attended that hearing, and it's my understanding that DLCD dropped their case when they realized that Oregon Department of Forestry, the Southwest Fire District, which is all of us here in Josephine County, the roughly 40,000 people are in that fire district of ODF. So they agreed that if that was the route that was going to be used, that was legitimate. As far as I don't, all I know is that the county legal counsel said that they dropped that, and that was the reason why. That's all I understand.
Yeah, I guess for me, this issue sounds very complicated, and one of the purposes of moving forward with this is investigation. And it wouldn't be a finding of wrongdoing at this point, but it would be to just move forward with investigating. And right now I have questions, including, where and why the appeal was dropped, where in the record that reasoning would be. I have questions at this point. And again, our job today is not to make any decision or any findings, but to make a decision simply to move forward to investigate. And right now I have some questions because we don't have before us, for instance, a record of why that appeal was dropped and the reasoning. And so I would like to move forward to investigate that and maybe perhaps get that record. And that's where I'm going.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Before we move forward to a motion, it looks like Vice Chair Fiscom has a question or his hand raised. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just a quick question. First of all, just a comment. I would want to generally associate myself with the remarks from Commissioner Payne relative to what it means to move forward, not finding a violation, but the need for more information, to which end I ask in a friendly way a question of our investigator. Ms. Murrieta, do you have any comments on the statements that Mr. King has made today? If not, that's okay. If so, I would love to hear him.
Yeah. So obviously, I echo what Commissioner Payne said, that this is a very complicated issue, and we need to go through and confirm some of the things he said. What I would also point out is regarding the conflict of interest in the 90 days and DLCB rescinding allegedly, that memo, that kind of isn't the main point. Like at the time that they suspended it, there was no timeline of the 90 days. At the time there was no it's only gonna be for this amount of time. What ended up happening was DLCB, from what I recall, DLCB sent that memorandum and then they stopped it. But at the time of the suspension, Mr. West still, it appears, may have taken an action that did financially benefit Access Development. And another thing that I was a little confused about, maybe the attorney or Mr. West could clarify, was you said that the companies are only hauling dirt. My understanding from Mr. West's response that Westland's contracting is the dirt hauling, and then Access Development does something separate, concerning development. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me, I'm a little disinclined to get into the facts matter right now on that. Sounds
That's
like
fair.
that would be follow-up questions on if we were to proceed with investigation. But thank you for telling us what you would like to discover and what you would like to button up.
Mhm.
So with that said, commissioners, are there any additional questions that you might have to Mr. King or Commissioner West? Seeing none, it's time to make a decision whether we want to proceed or not. I think we've heard from Commissioner Payne and Vice Chair Fiscom. Any other commissioners that have any comments or a motion to make?
Mr. Chair, when
seeing none.
The moment is right, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, but subject to your direction.
Sure, go ahead. Unless Commissioner Payne wants to make the motion, or would you like Vice Chair? Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair Fiscom.
She's nodding her head as to me, I believe, Commissioner Payne. Thank you. I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. John West may have violated provisions of ORS 244.120 sub 2 and ORS 244.040 sub 1, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments on the motion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be a no vote today. I'm satisfied by the what we heard from Mr. King, that the company was paying through their property taxes for prior fire protection anyway. So I don't see a need to move forward. I think he was paying what he needed to pay. So I'm a no.
Thank you. I see that Commissioner Mason also has his hand raised.
Well, and that's I'm confused on where there's a conflict that would deter, he would have to abstain from a vote. And so I guess I'm looking at it and I don't see a clear-cut conflict of interest. I'm not convinced that there's a financial benefit to him directly because of it. And so I would be with Commissioner Thompson on that as well.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other additional comments, we will call for the vote on the motion that's on the table.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Nay.
Commissioner Burke,
Nay.
Commissioner Thompson,
No.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Okay, motion fails 4-3.
Thank you, commissioners. Commissioner West and Mr. King, this means that the matter is not moving forward. And we thank you for being with us today. And our staff will be in contact to button things up. Executive Director, yes.
You need to make a second motion. What the motion failed was the motion to investigate, but you have not dismissed.
Okay. That's fine. We'll go. Thank you for clarifying that. Vice Chair Fiscum, will you make a motion for us?
Sure, I would do that. I would just add just a quick comment for our respondents today, Mr. King and Mr. West. What happened, just for the record, was that in order for us to proceed, our vote in the commission by law has to total 5. It did not total 5, so we don't move ahead. The upshot of that is my next motion, which is that I hereby move that the commission dismiss this matter number 230440 EHM at our March 22nd executive session meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Seeing no, Commissioner Mason, do you still have your hand raised, or?
Yeah, I do, because I don't think that we actually have to dismiss this, because I just think it does not move forward to investigation on that. But in the past, we've never had to go back and do a new motion if it failed for a vote count.
You may be right. I apologize. It will be administratively dismissed for failure to meet the minimum votes.
I think that's correct, but we'll give a lot of leverage here for Executive Director Myers, and let's go ahead and still vote on this because it's still live.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Commissioner West, Mr. King, thank you for being with us today. The case has been dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 38. Mr. Daniels. It looks like he will be attending via Teams. So
I'm
let's
admitting
let
him
us.
now.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, let me just take this moment to suggest that what we might want to do with our executive director is confirm the status of such matters as we just had. If we don't reach the total of 5, does the matter die of its own weight? I presume that answer is yes. We might just want to clarify that to make sure we're all on the same wavelength. Thank you.
Yes, I'm confident. Yeah, we need the 5, but go ahead, Executive Director Myers.
Yeah, so you need the 5 to move forward. I'm clearly very tired today, so I apologize. Had the first motion failed, at that point, if there is no other motion to dismiss, it would be administratively dismissed for failure to meet the required number of votes. So you are correct, Commissioner Mason. We didn't need to have the second vote, so I don't think it hurts.
Okay.
Thank you, Director. And for the record, I didn't want to say that in a rude way. I just knew that in the past that had not been the case. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Daniels, thank you for being with us today. My name is Sean Lindsay. I serve as the chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, and now's the time to have your matter heard before us. What's going to happen procedurally here is is in Investigator McIntyre is going to give his statement on his preliminary review. We might have some questions of him. You'll have a chance to respond. We do ask that when you do respond to keep it brief, so that because we have a large agenda today, and we might have some questions of you. And then after that, we'll make a decision whether to move forward or not. And with that said, Investigator McIntyre, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Lindsay and Commission. This is Investigator Andrew McIntyre for the record. Agenda item number 38 in your meeting book is a preliminary review report for Marty Daniels, member of the Jackson County Fair Board. This case centers around a contract that Marty Daniels' company, Infinity Electric Contractors, Inc., entered into with Friends of the Fair Foundation to install lighting fixtures at the Jackson County Fairgrounds Exposition Center. It appears that in June 2023, Mr. Daniels initially received an email from the operations manager at the Expo Center asking for Mr. Daniels' opinion on a proposal the Expo Center had received regarding installing lighting fixtures. Mr. Daniels responded to that email stating he could offer the same thing, but a better quality, plus all the installation he could provide, and might be interested in donating some labor. This set off a string of events. Further in August 2023, Mr. Daniels then sent a proposal to the Expo on behalf of his company to install lighting fixtures at multiple buildings associated with the Jackson County Expo. While Jackson County was soliciting other bids, Mr. Daniels appears to have met with Friends of the Fair to discuss with them helping with the project. On August 17th, 2023, the Fair Board held a meeting discussing the lighting project. Mr. Daniels was at this meeting. It does not appear that Mr. Daniels made a public statement disclosing the nature of his conflict of interest at this meeting. Further, the next day, Mr. Daniels appears to have obtained a contract with Friends of the Fair to help with the project, paying Infinity Electrical Contractors $25,000 as part of his proposal that was sent to the Expo. As the Expo was then evaluating the bids that they received as part of this lighting project, it appears that Mr. Daniels made contact with individuals responsible for those decisions and had conversations related to the bid process. It appears that Mr. Daniels' bid was not considered the best bid based on overall value. However, Infinity Electric was still awarded the contract in September of 2023. It appears Mr. Daniels may have violated ORS 244040 as he had access to the original proposal that was provided by the competing company initially in June. And he had access to members of the Fair Board and also Friends of the Fair in order to get the $25,000 donation towards his company and the bid. He would not apparently have had access to those items if not for his position on the Fair Board. It is also appears that he may have used confidential information in order to provide a more competitive bid in order to do that. And it also appears that he did not disclose a conflict of interest. There was another issue that was presented in the complaint that in November of 2023, after a meeting in which the Fair Board offered a new director a position, that Mr. Daniels attempted to use his official position for financial gain by offering to rent a vacant rental to this new hire. Therefore, Mr. Daniels appeared to have used his official position in an attempt to financially benefit. Based on all of that, it appears that the information available during the preliminary review, there is a substantial objective basis to believe that Marty Daniels may have violated ORS 244.040 subsection 1, ORS 244.040 subsection 4, and ORS 244.120 subsection 1. The Oregon Government Ethics Commission should move to investigate the complaint against Marty Daniels. Thank you.
Thank you, Investigator McIntyre. Question, the complainant is Nicole Rollins. Could you please tell me how she might be related to this and became aware of it?
Right, I believe Ms. Rollins is the county auditor for Jackson County.
Thank you.
So it was reported to her and then she was the complainant.
Thank you.
Official.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. McIntyre? Seeing none, Mr. Daniels, now is your opportunity to respond. Again, we remind you to be efficient with your time, and we thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay, and thank you everybody for being here and taking your time today to let me speak about this matter. I have been involved with this for quite some time, as you know, and I've sent Andrew a lot of information trying to fill in some of the holes. Unfortunately, phone call conversations and emails, don't have exact timelines. The emails do, excuse me, phone conversations. So trying to fill in the blanks of these things overlapping, happening simultaneously in some cases, and or after the fact. I wanted to point out a handful of minor things. County Council of Jackson County, Joel Bennett, had reviewed this with the Friends of the Fair and said that the Friends of the Fair being an entity on their own, this is completely above board for them to pay Infinity Electrical directly. The Friends of the Fair doesn't give money to the Jackson County Fairgrounds directly. They've always given their money to a contractor or a business that provides services or material or equipment. So that is the same way they've done business forever. And I've been part of doing contracts with them at the fairgrounds for many, many years. This didn't benefit Infinity Electric in any way, as we donated all the time to do this. The Friends of the Fair came to Infinity Electric, me, after I proposed to give the material to the expo and install lights in 3 buildings. I couldn't justify, or I couldn't afford to donate all of it. So I had, in my original proposal, excluded 2 buildings that the expo was going to have to go find their own means to put those lights in. The Friends of the Fair heard about this and came and said, how can they help? So I told them that there was 2 buildings left to have material put in, and they said, how much is that going to cost? So I went back and penciled it out and I sent them a cost proposal because they wanted something in writing to talk to their board. So I did that. They then liked it, thought it was a great avenue to spend their dollars towards the expo to benefit the expo with new lighting, but also energy savings down the road. This is a $0 transaction to the county. Therefore, again, it didn't benefit. Infinity did not use its position to benefit Infinity. It used its position, I guess, to benefit the expo, as we were donating again all the time. The whole thing, though, stems from the complainant, I know, is Ms. Rollins, but it came from one of the bidding contractors, which actually is not a contractor. One of the bidding companies is a wholesale house, Power and Control. So their original proposal that it says that I received is just an email they sent that said they could provide fixtures at no cost to the expo in return for advertisement. They didn't talk about any installation, anything. I have been working, trying to do this project with the expo literally for the last 15 plus years as being an Oregon Energy Trade ally. And it's never penciled out until this new incentive the Oregon Energy Trust put together made it work. So just timing, not having enough time to get things proposed and to them fast enough. I had made verbal conversations, but never actually put anything in writing until in August. And this conversation had been going on for years and years. So when Rob Holmbeck, the expo manager, or excuse me, he's the expo manager right now. He was a facilities director at the time. Sent me that email. I didn't gain any information other than they were going to give up the fixtures for some. They were going to give them some fixtures for the advertisement. I then continued on with what I originally had planned to provide the fixtures and provide installation. And then I was able to, our company was doing well to donate the labor to install the fixtures. That was original conversation. I wasn't planning on doing that because I didn't know I could afford it, but you know, times got good and we did okay. So the biggest problem is that the power and control owner and the company that I bought the fixtures from, North Coast Electric, are the only two companies that are receiving any money in this transaction. So he could have received almost $40,000 from the Oregon Energy Trust if he would have given the fixtures to the expo. He didn't do that because he didn't give the fixtures to the expo. He was violating Oregon Energy Trust policy by not charging for the fixtures. That's a totally different subject we don't need to talk about. But I don't feel that I had any access to anything privileged. I did not announce my conflict of interest as I didn't realize that I was supposed to. I'm a new board member. I've now been on it for 3 years, but through COVID, not a lot happened. Since then, I've gone to an Oregon ethics training class and learned the things that I need to do and how to do it, and learn how I need to present that. There's no official training as an appointed position to be a fair board member from our county or the state, or there is, but I didn't receive that training before I started on the board. So it was a mistake that I didn't realize I was even making. And same goes to the offering of the rental. I was just trying to help her move up here from California. She said she didn't have any place to live. Her comment was, our fair board manager our fair board president, JB Demick, after the meeting was adjourned, asked her, when are you going to come up? And she said, well, I need to find a place to live. So I jokingly, well, I have a vacant rental. It lasted about a minute. And then our commissioner said, that's a conflict of interest. I said, I rescind this offer. I didn't realize, again, it was an issue at the time. I now know all of these things are issues. Again, I've now gone to an ethics training class and realized what I'm not supposed to do and how to deal with these things. I'm currently right now, we had a board meeting last night and I had to point out a conflict of interest for a new building, the expo building, that I will be bidding on. So I now know I have to do that. At the time, I didn't realize it was a thing. So.
Mr. McIntyre, thank you kindly for that. Thank you for your transparency as well. Before we ask questions of Mr. Daniels, Investigator McIntyre, I have a question, but for his failure to disclose his conflict of interest, if he had disclosed that, would that change your recommendation?
No, it would not at all. It appears that because of his position on the board, he had access to other members of the board, also access to Friends of the Fair in order to negotiate essentially or know what to bid, because he knew what the competing bid was initially that he viewed. Without that access to information, he would not have been able to make a more competitive bid. I failed to mention initially that the bid that he proposed also included advertising that his company was going to receive at the Expo Center that was valued at around $18,000 by the Expo Center. So there was not only the $25,000 that he appears to have negotiated with Friends of the Fair, part of his offer or the proposal included receiving $18,000 worth of free advertising. So yes, my recommendation would still be the same. He would not have been in the position to have access to the individuals he did, and he would not have even been able to do any of that without his position.
So as a follow-up to that, thank you. Had he declared his conflict, number one, number two, abstained, had he abstained from the vote, would that change your recommendation?
It doesn't appear that he voted on approving the contract. There was an independent individual who was assigned with evaluating it. I'm based on the information I currently have, I don't know how that came about that he was approved the contract. That is something I would like to discover during investigation, is how that transpired. There seems to be a gap in the emails and the information that I have, specifically from the county, of how it moved from discussing the proposals that they received from Mr. Daniels' company, along with 2 or 3 other companies that provided proposals. There was some internal discussion indicating that the person making or recommending the decision did not believe Mr. Daniels offered the best overall value when taking into account the $25,000 that was being included only for his company. It does not appear that that $25,000 from Friends of the Fair would have gone to the project generally, but only to his company was offered that or provided that option. So I would like to find out kind of how it transpired from we're not sure his is the best deal to the next thing I know, he has the contract. And he also indicated there were some conversations that he had with some of the people making the decisions, kind of following up and checking in terms of what was going on with the bid process. I'd like to know more about specifically what those conversations entailed, if he used his position to persuade individuals to give him that contract or give his company that contract.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, any questions of Mr. Daniels or Investigator McIntyre? Commissioner Mason.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to know, Mr. Daniels, did you vote on your contract in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Okay.
This was never a board vote. It was done through the Jackson County Facility Maintenance Department, and their manager, Ryan Desitel, was the person who I assume made the final decision with county council's approval and his boss, Danny Jordan's approval. Ryan's job is to go out and solicit the bids and then provide his findings to his boss and the county commissioners. And there was never a board vote or really any board discussion. There was a brief board discussion during one board meeting because Rob Hernandez, the president of the Friends of the Fair, came to the meeting as a guest and just wanted to discuss about the project.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, Mr. Chair, I think, I mean, obviously communication via email would be the key to, moving forward. And so I would, based on that information, I would obviously support the process of moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
Executive Director
Myers.
I just wanted to follow up on Andrew's response, Chair Lindsay, and clarify that even had Mr. Daniels disclosed the conflict of interest, announcing a conflict doesn't get rid of a potential use of office violation. So it would not apply to the 040.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, seeing no other comments, anyone have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion with 2 quick comments. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Daniels for the clarity and honesty and openness of his remarks today. They have been very helpful. I want to thank him also for his initiative to engage in a training session on Oregon ethics laws, which can be, to a newcomer to them, confusing. So, Mr. Daniels, thank you for that. Second comment that may irritate our counsel, Mr. Brady, I would say this strikes me as a matter that when we go to investigation, if we do, would be appropriate to yield a letter of education clarifying these matters. So from one commissioner, Mr. Chair, to that end, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Marty Daniels may have violated ORS 244.040 sub 1, ORS 244.040 sub 4, and ORS 244.120 sub 2, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. I'll make a comment on your motion, Vice Chair Fiscum. I agree with you and would love to see a heavy educational process in this ordeal. So that's what I'd like to see be the outcome of this. And that's my comments. I will be supporting the motion, but with those comments. Commissioners, any other comments on the motion before us? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Molly, please.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiska,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Mr. Daniel, we've made a decision to proceed forward with just additional fact-finding and investigation. We have not made a decision that you have violated anything. I want to make sure that's very clear to you. We appreciate your transparency. Staff will be in contact with you and we appreciate your continued assistance in helping us to iron out those facts. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, staff, we'll now move on to agenda item 39.
All right, Mr. Eckert and his attorney are here, so I'm going to go grab them.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, while they're being admitted, just a quick reminder, Ms. Murrieta, I believe, did send out an additional comment from the attorney that you probably, as commissioners, have received. Just for the record, that's part of our agenda today. Thank you.
Yes, correct.
Come on in and sit down.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Sean Lindsay. I'm chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And today, this time now is the time for us to hear your matter before us, Mr. Eckert. We appreciate you being with us, and we understand that your attorney, Mr. DeWeese, I'm hoping that I'm saying that correctly. Thank you for being with us today. Procedurally, what's going to happen is our Investigator Murrieta, is going to give a report to the commission. We may have some questions for her, and then we'll give you an opportunity. And DeWeese, will you be speaking on behalf of Mr. Eckert?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll give you a short amount of time to do that. We do ask that you be efficient with your time. We have a long agenda today, and we ask that you be precise and to the point. And then we may have some questions of you as well. And then we'll make a decision whether we're going to proceed or not with this matter. So that's how it will happen procedurally. And with that said, Investigator Murrieta, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you, Chair Lindsay. Commissioners, this is Investigator Hillary Murrieta. Agenda item 39 in your books is a preliminary review report for Tom Eckert, a former member for the Psilocybin Advisory Board. In this case, it appears that Mr. Eckert, in his official position on the board, discussed and recommended standards for psilocybin services and licensing that would have a direct financial impact on Intertrek, a psilocybin service provider and business with which he is associated. By creating and recommending standards for psilocybin services, Mr. Eckert was in turn affecting the licensure, training, and curriculum requirements that would financially affect a service provider such as Intertrek. During the November 17th meeting minutes, Mr. Eckert voted against approving the recommended requirements for service providers, and then voted to pass and recommended a recommended requirement that required less hours of training. Further, determining the scope of practice that a service provider offers would financially affect Intertrek and potentially limit the services they are able to provide, thus affecting them financially. As such, it appears that Mr. Eckert was faced with an actual conflict of interest. While the Vice article states that Mr. Eckert did reveal a financial interest with his business, he would have been required to publicly announce his actual conflict of interest on each occasion out of which the actual conflict of interest arises, and recuse himself from any discussion, debate, or vote on the matter. There is no indication in the meeting minutes presented above, in the preliminary review report, that Mr. Eckert announced his conflict of interest and recused himself. Due to the lack of detail contained in the meeting minutes, it is currently difficult to determine the scope and discussion of debate. Should this case move to investigation, commission staff would review all the meeting recordings at which Mr. Eckert was a board member to determine the scope of discussion and debate. In this case, the commission could determine that the class exception applies. In determining its analysis of whether a class exception exists, the commission would need to identify the members of the class of which Mr. Eckert's business belongs and determine whether Mr. Eckert's recommendations affect other businesses to the same degree as the other members of the class to which he belongs. Potential members of a class could include other psilocybin service providers. Additionally, the complaint in this case alleges that Mr. Eckert used his official position to financially benefit his partner Rachel Aiden's business, Synthesis. The complaint advice articles state that Mr. Eckert was in an intimate relationship with Miss Aiden during his time on the board. Mr. Eckert's use of his official position to financially benefit Synthesis could only result in a violation of Oregon ethics law if at the time Mr. Eckert took the alleged action, Miss Aiden was a member of Mr. Eckert's household. It is unclear at this time the precise date that Mr. Eckert and Miss Aiden began residing together. The Vice article indicates that Mr. Eckert sent an email to board members recommending Synthesis to present and provide trainings to help them clarify the road ahead. However, Mr. Eckert would violate ORS 244.040 sub 1 only if he used or attempted to use official position to obtain a financial gain for Synthesis. And in this situation, it doesn't appear to be the case. It instead appears that at most, this recommendation could have resulted only in Synthesis providing counsel and training to the board on psilocybin. There is no indication that Synthesis was or could have been compensated for providing this training or advice, or counsel. Further, it doesn't appear Mr. Eckert had any authority in his position on the board to take any action that could result in a financial benefit for Synthesis. Beyond that, there's no information obtained during the PR review to indicate Mr. Eckert used or attempted to use his official position to financially benefit Synthesis. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation unless the commission determines the class exception applies.
Thank you, Investigator Marietta. A couple questions for you. Shasta Wynn is the complainant. Would you please tell us how she's related in this story?
Yeah, so she appears to also be a service provider. I don't know if she does psilocybin, but she is, I think, like an energy healer type person. And she, I don't know if you know any more about her, but she, yeah, that's kind of all the information I know.
Okay, thank you. And then the follow-up to that is, had he declared his conflict and recused himself, would that change your opinion or your recommendation?
I mean, I guess I would say maybe it's more important, maybe we should determine whether that class exception applies. And if he did announce that conflict of interest on each occasion, I mean, it still would have been an actual conflict of interest, and he still would have been required to stay out of any vote, discussion, or debate or recommendation. So yeah, it wouldn't have been, if you don't determine a class exception applies, it would have been an actual conflict of interest, which would require the announcement and also recusal.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fiscom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, investigator, for your comments on class, as well as the paragraph on the top of page 185 in the report for us today. Can you remind us, me and us, what steps need to be taken by us to determine that a quote class unquote exists? It's not just something we can do off the top of our heads. I'm assuming there must be a process. It would help me to have an understanding from you about what that process is. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the commission would need to identify the members of the class of which Mr. Eckert's business belongs and determine whether Mr. Eckert's recommendations affect other businesses to the same degree as the other members of the class to which he belongs. So potential members of the class, or the class could be other psilocybin service providers.
So the follow-up for me, just briefly, Mr. Chair, investigator, is that determination is something that would require more work on our part. It is not something that we could establish as existing today based on the information we have before us. That would require, again, to repeat, more work. Am I right?
Well, and also the respondent has an opportunity to share.
Thank you.
And we might be able to base it off of what they share as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, any other questions of investigator? Commissioner Thompson, please.
This might be part of any upcoming class discussion, but how do you see, or do you see any differences in this case? For example, hypothetically, a physician on the Oregon Medical Board voted to expand or constrict scope of practice for physicians. I mean, is there any difference here that you see, or is that something we'd have to take into account in the scope of practice discussion?
That's more of you question. Yeah.
the class exception talks about, you know, if you're a member of an industry occupation, that could be the class. And if you are, for example, a doctor talking about scope of practice, if it affects all members of the class to the same degree, then the class exception could apply. So it's in this case, if the action or decision or recommendation being made about what will the training requirements be, what will the scope of practice be, if it affected all members to the same degree, then potentially the class exception could apply. I think there is potentially a question here about how are we defining the class? Like, was the decision being made one that narrowed the members of the class by excluding others? And I don't know enough about the decision that was being made, but arguably it would be similar to the medical provider.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
All right, seeing no other comments, Mr. DeWeese, go ahead, please. And we do remind you that we're short on time, so we ask you to be precise with your time. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I will be, Chair. Mr. Eckert was a member of the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board by virtue of his position as chief petitioner of Measure 109, which legalized psilocybin services in the state of Oregon. What Measure 109 did was establish the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board as an advisory board for people with an interest in psilocybin and in the potential psilocybin industry to meet, discuss, and to provide advice and recommendations to the Oregon Health Authority as the Oregon Health Authority began drafting rules and guidelines for this new industry, which at the time did not exist. Mr. Eckert served in that advisory capacity. And again, the Oregon Health Authority did not have to follow any of the recommendations that the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board gave. Also, at the time, Mr. Eckert served on the advisory board. Mr. Eckert didn't have a psilocybin business. He had the intention to have one once he was able to, once the OHA promulgated regulations to allow those businesses to exist. But at the time, he had no business, no psilocybin business. I think he may have filed articles of organization for his LLC. The reason why, in my opinion, the class exception so clearly applies here is if you look at the Guide for Public Officials contains a good example of when the class exception applies. And the example is when a city council member who owns a motel in the city where they're a council member votes on a law or a regulation which will generally affect all motels in that city. That city, the city council member is subject to that class exception because the thing that he's doing, it affects all of the motel owners in the city to the same degree. In this instance, in Mr. Eckert's case, the class exception is even more valid because of two additional factors. Number one, Mr. Eckert, at the time he served on the board, he didn't have an operating business. Number two, in fact, no one had psilocybin businesses. They were all just potential businesses. Now, I understand that he's got the intent and that should be taken into account. But the fact is he didn't have an operating business at the time. The second factor is, again, the recommendations and actions he was taking on the OPAB were merely recommendations to the OHA. There's no guarantee at all that the OHA would follow any of that advice or recommendations. And indeed, in many cases, the advice of the OPAB was not followed. So there is somewhat of a disconnect between Mr. Eckert voting on something, the OPAB passing that vote and then making a recommendation to the OHA, it's not certain that the OHA would even act on it. In terms of the question of what the class would be, it could be several different things because there are several different types of psilocybin businesses and adjacent businesses which could have been affected by the recommendations of the OPAB. There are psilocybin service centers, psilocybin manufacturing facilities, facilitator training, and then curricula certification, which occurs by the OHA. So you could say the class is all potential psilocybin businesses in Oregon, or all potential service center participants and licensees, or all people who wanted to get their training programs certified. Whatever the class is, the recommendations and actions Mr. Eckert was taking would apply to all of those people to the exact same degree as they would have applied to Mr. Eckert's business. And the gentleman here, as the last point, the gentleman here had a question about physicians serving on boards and making recommendations about the scope of practice. So technically, I believe the prior subsection to the class exception in subsection 13, it's 13A, provides an exception when a person is taking actions and they're in the position based on their professional licensure. So that exception doesn't technically apply in this case because Mr. Eckert was serving on the board because he was chief petitioner of Measure 109, which of course is not a professional certification. But the reason why he was serving on that board is because he has a special expertise in this area. And all of the members of the OPAB had in other words, this was a sort of a professional board that was there to give professional advice to the OHA, which the OHA could follow or not. So in my view, the class exception really clearly applies here, and we ask this commission to take no further action on this matter. Thank you for allowing me some remarks this morning.
Thank you. And thank you for being here in person today as well. We appreciate that. All right, commissioners, any questions for Mr. Deweese? Seeing none, now's the time, commissioners, to make a decision here whether we're going to proceed or not. And I'm looking to see if any commissioners might have comments or a motion to make.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy in a moment to make a motion. I have a quick question first for our learned counsel, Mr. Brady. Can you be a little more specific with us or amplify on what it is that either our staff or we as a commission would have to do to determine that a class exists? It's not something we can do randomly. It's a process we have to go through to establish that class. Am I right?
Yeah, the statute contemplates that the commission would identify the actual class first. So that's kind of step one. Step two is, as Investigator Murrieta said, is to analyze that class and compare it to basically the impacts of the class and whether or not the individual, whether that's the person who's making the vote or recommendation or a relative or business with which they are associated, as they're part of that class, does that impact all of the class members to the same degree? And so it's difficult at the preliminary review stage to make those determinations because a lot of times the information is not in the record to make the comparative determinations on once you identify the class. But that does not prohibit you from, for instance, if not proceeding, if you decide for other reasons not to proceed. But if you're going to proceed on the class basis, it's very difficult to make those determinations at the preliminary review stage.
Yeah, I think that it seems to me, and sorry to interrupt Vice Chair Fiscom, but it seems to me we can make a decision to proceed with an investigation. One option, other option is to not, to move to dismiss. 3, I suppose we could just out of the air and based on what Mr. Deweese said, make a class determination, but that seems a little sketchy for us to do so, as Mr. Brady says, without having conducted a full investigation. So at least in my mind, I think we really have two options: to proceed or not proceed at this moment. And if we do proceed, we could direct staff to focus carefully on the class exception.
Thank you, Chair. But thank you, Council. Appreciate that. And my assumption is that if we are, in fact, if we do vote to proceed in a few moments, that one of the elements of proceeding will be to investigate specifically, in the spirit of your remarks, Council and investigator, whether a class actually exists. That said, I hereby move that the commission find there is
No, but I've got you. Go ahead. I see Commissioner Mason. We'll let Vice Chair.
Thank you,
Vice Chair
Chair.
Fiscom, you're welcome to make your motion, and then we'll let Commissioner Mason speak unless you want to give him first shot.
I would defer to my colleague, Commissioner Mason, please.
Go ahead, Commissioner Mason.
My apology. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Appreciate that opportunity. In this situation, I just don't see a violation that is worth pursuing and a continued investigation on. I mean, anytime you have this long of a dialogue on whether there's a true violation, it seems like the commission goes into, let's look for a potential violation versus something that's self-evident and we need to pursue it through the investigative process. That is me. I would not support moving forward with an investigation, but I'm happy to vote against Vice Chair's motion if so made. Thank you.
Are you making a motion, Commissioner Mason?
I am not making a motion because I would not want to, I guess I just did stop the Vice Chair from making that motion. So,
well, we can have two motions competing. Anybody can make a motion. So you let us know whether you're making a motion or not.
I would like to move to dismiss the complaint.
Okay, we have a motion in front of us to dismiss the complaint. Any other motions, commissioners? Seeing none, any comments on Commissioner Mason's motion?
Mr. Chair, just for the record, I'll be a no because I do believe that in the spirit of the discussion over the last few minutes, we need to do some additional work on whether a class exists or not, and if so, how does that affect this issue? So my vote will be no.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Molly, please.
Commissioner Newell,
No.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscom,
No.
Commissioner Payne,
No.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion fails 4-3.
Commissioner Fiscom, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I don't know that we need a motion. I'm happy to make one if you would like me to make a motion.
Yeah, I think we probably ought to go through the voting process. I think we know where the votes will land, but I think let's go through it still.
Mr. Chair, happy to comply easily with your suggestion. So I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Tom Eckert may have violated ORS 244.120 sub 2 and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Mason,
Nay.
Commissioner Burke,
Nay.
Commissioner Thompson,
No.
Commissioner Fiscom,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Nay.
Okay, motion fails 3-4. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mr. Deweese and Mr. Eckert, we have failed to move forward with an investigation. So what that means is that your case will be administratively dissolved later. Staff will button that up for you, and we appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you for your time this morning, Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay, staff or commission and staff, it's 10:20. I'd say we still plow ahead if that's all right with you. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 40. And it looks like Mr. Caber will be joining us.
I'm admitting him now. The respondent has joined.
Are they all here?
Let's see. Sergeant Caber, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We cannot see you, and that's okay, but we just want to make sure that you can hear us. So what we're going to do now, Sergeant Caber, is procedurally what's going to happen is Investigator Murrieta is going to give a report on her preliminary review, and then we may have some questions of her, and then we'll give you an opportunity to speak as well, and we might have some questions of you, and then the commission will make a decision whether to proceed or not. So that's how we'll proceed. And with that said, Investigator Murrieta, go ahead. Please give your report.
All right, thank you, Chair Lindsay. This is Investigator Hillary Murrieta. Agenda item 40 is a preliminary review report for Ryan Caber, a sergeant for the Klamath County Sheriff's Office. The complaint in this case alleges that Ryan Caber accepted a gift over $50 from a source that has a known legislative or administrative interest. In this case, the gift was a Belgian Malinois from Top Dog, a K-9 training school. As explained in his response, Mr. Caber and Captain Bryson traveled to California to visit Top Dog to determine whether to obtain a K-9 for the K-9 handler school. After visiting Top Dog, Mr. Caber and Mr. Bryson returned to the sheriff's office and gave a report to Sheriff Caber, ultimately recommending Top Dog. And Sheriff Caber adopting that recommendation and submitting a request for approval to the board. Once approved, Mr. Caber.
I'm sorry to interrupt. There's Sergeant Caber and Sheriff Caber, both same names?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Sheriff Caber is his father, Chris
Okay.
Caber. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So when I
Thank
say
you.
Sheriff Caber, I do mean the elected Sheriff Chris Caber, his father, and then Mr.
Thank you.
Caber is Brian Caber. I can always say Brian Caber as well. That might make it easier. So I will do that. Sorry for the confusion. Okay. And Sheriff Chris Caber adopting that recommendation and submitting a request for approval to the board. Once approved, Ryan Caber traveled back down to Ripon, California to pick up K-9 Blitz. Following Blitz's death, Ron Clower, the owner of Top Dog, gifted Ryan Caber a Belgian Malinois Ziegen for his personal use. As provided in the administrative rules, the fair market value is used to determine the price of a gift. It appears the fair market value of Ziegen is in the thousands of dollars and well over $50. Since Ziegen is a gift of over $50, in order to determine whether Ryan Caber may accept the gift, one must determine whether the source of the gift, Top Dog, has an economic interest. A legislative or administrative interest is an economic interest distinct from that of the general public in any matter subject to the vote or decision of the public official. In the OARs, they define a decision to mean an act that commits the public body to a particular course of action within the public official's scope of authority, and that is connected to the source's economic interest. Ryan Caber admits that he was part of the team to select Top Dog as a vendor for the sheriff's contract, for the Klamath County Sheriff's contract. As such, Ryan Caber made a decision to select Top Dog, and therefore Top Dog has a legislative or administrative interest. With Ryan Caber. Ryan Caber was therefore prohibited from accepting a gift over $50 from Top Dog and or the Clowers, the owners of Top Dog. Additionally, at the time Ryan Caber received the gifted dog, he was the key witness related to any warranties issues related to K-9 Blitz between Top Dog and Sheriff Chris Caber and Klamath County Sheriff's Office. Ryan Caber knew the warranty issue was an outstanding issue that had to be resolved, and there's an appearance that Ryan Caber received the gift in exchange for beneficial treatment, either in the warranty issue or within the broader police community. Top Dog also has a legislative or administrative interest with Sheriff Chris Caber, Ryan Caber's parent. As a contracted vendor to the sheriff's office, Top Dog had a clear administrative interest with Sheriff Chris Caber. Therefore, Ryan Caber knew Top Dog had this economic interest, and he may have violated ORS 244.025 sub 1 by accepting a gift over $50 from a source that has an economic interest in his father's role as sheriff. Additionally, that Ryan Caber may have used his official position to gain the financial benefit of a Belgian Malinois worth thousands of dollars to avoid a financial detriment, not being to purchase one of his own for his personal benefit. And additionally, it appears that Ryan Caver may have used his position to gain the financial benefit of this Belgian Malinois for his wife and children, which are his relatives and members of his household. At the time Ryan Caver received the gifted dog, Ryan Caver was the key apologize, I already said that. Additionally, that Ryan Caver took his wife and children, or when they traveled to Ripon to visit Top Dog. At this time, it's unclear whether Ryan Caver's spouse and children were paid for by the sheriff's office or with their personal funds. And should this case move to investigation, commission staff would seek to ascertain whether the trip for his family was paid for by the sheriff's office. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator Murrieta. Here's a familiar question. Amanda Van Riper
Yes.
is the complainant. Can you tell us how she's involved in this?
She's the human resources manager for Klamath County.
Thank you. And when you say warranty issue, is this warranty on the dog that died?
Yes.
Okay. And so kind of how I'm seeing this is that Top Dog said, sorry, dog died. We're giving you a different one to fulfill our warranty to you. That sounds like that's going on. And then the second thing is, I can't remember the dog's name, but yeah, is Sergeant Caber, isn't he a canine officer? And don't those dogs usually reside with those officers?
So to clarify, Blitz was for like a canine for the sheriff's office. Zegan, the replaced Belgian Malinois, was for his personal use, like for his own dog, not to be worked with at the sheriff's office as a canine.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, any questions of Investigator Murrieta? Vice Chair Fiscom, sounds like you maybe had one.
I was toying with asking a question. Basically, it would have been the same question you asked, so I think I'll hold off to hear Mr. Caber's comments in a few moments. My question resides around the point of whose dog was it? The canine handler who has a dog that often stays with him or her at that person's house, or is this a quote gift, pardon my use of that word for this purpose, a gift to the organization as opposed to the individual? That's a key point for me. Thank you.
It was for his personal use, and he can confirm that as well. It was featured in his response.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Caber, thank you for being with us today. Now is your opportunity to give us your statement. We do ask that you be efficient with your time and precise and to the point. We have a long agenda today, and we appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. You can still hear me? I tried to fix my camera. Am I visible now?
Yes.
Okay, very well. Commission, thank you for having me and allowing me to participate in this process. I just have a couple of points on this. To Commissioner Fiscom, Canine Blitz belonged to the sheriff's office and did reside with me, as is typical with handlers. He passed away on the operating table. He had an anesthetic seizure in September. Ron Cloward, who is the owner of Top Dog and was mentioned in the investigator's report, that he and I forged a friendship, our two families, exchanging phone calls, and have gone down there to visit him on and off over the last year. When Blitz died, I called Ron, as you know, he had paired me with Ron, and his organization had trained me, and he was the only person who could understand the grief that I was going through at that time. And he communicated with me, obviously, through the weeks. His wife called me while she was on vacation, and 2 weeks later, he called me while I was at home and said that he had talked to his staff and it was heavy on his heart, and he wanted to gift me a dog that had failed out of his training. Mr. Cloward frequently gives dogs away. He also sells dogs that fail out of the training. And I told Mr. Cloward that I didn't know that I would ever be allowed to be a handler again. And he clarified and said this wasn't a replacement for Blitz, that he would honor any warranty and work with the county on that issue, that this was designed to put a leash back in my hand and to get me back in the saddle, was his quote. And that while nothing could replace Blitz, I needed to come pick up this dog. So on many issues, canine related and others, I have great trust in my friend Ron Cloward, and he was right. Zegan has been a blessing to the family. I had no desire to go and get another dog. They're a lot of work, but he was right to understand that that needed to be done. And so, you know, issues that the investigator brings up about me taking my family there, that those were answered and available to the commission during this process, but they're not included in the report. I was on my way home from Disneyland with my family. We stopped there so they could see where Dad was going to go to school in a month. And so I would leave you with this. Complaints, as I'm sure the commissioner is aware, are not filed by your friends. They're done by your enemies, whether personal or political, in my case, both. The death of my partner, I was not prepared for that. That was one of the most traumatizing things I think I've ever been through. And Mr. Cloward recognized my grief. Those complainants against me have weaponized my grief. And I believe that they're misusing your commission. And so I would tell you this, that while it will come with great detriment to the citizens of Klamath County and a cost to the state of Oregon, your commission should have been provided everything that was available. In fact, there is a report where I'm interviewed and Ron Cloward is interviewed, and many of these questions that you as a commission will have were answered in that investigation, but the investigator chose to leave them out and said they had no relevance to her analysis.
They were, well, the commission has received all that information as well. So it may not have been featured in my report, but it was submitted to them as exhibits.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sergeant.
Either way, with great detriment to the county and then, you know, the cost to the state of Oregon, I encourage you to conduct a further investigation. I don't want it for my personal, you know, life and what I'm trying to accomplish in the profession. I don't believe I'm unethical. This was a gift. I believe there's a blurring of the lines here between economic value and market value, and that the cost of that dog and why Ron Cloward gave it to me is to be determined by Ron Cloward, and he provided that answer. And as the investigator stated, that's available for you. So I encourage you, go ahead and conduct a further investigation. I think it will reveal over time that what I'm telling you is truthful. Thank you.
Sergeant Kaber, how long was Blitz with you?
273 days.
And how long are the warranties usually?
The warranty for the dog, it depends. I believe there was a 1 year warranty. I'd have to look at that paperwork. I provided the term key witness was used. I provided that information on how Blitz was cared for. Mr. Cloward and I talked about it through the 273 days that Blitz and I were partners, because it was something I was concerned about. As far as negotiations with the warranty, that was conducted with Mr. Cloward and Lieutenant Billy Stripling of the Sheriff's Office, of which I had no part and wasn't even aware that Mr. Cloward was honoring that warranty. So the Sheriff's Office is owed a dog, a replacement for Blitz. After the necropsy on Blitz, they determined that it was something that should have been caught. And so Mr. Cloward is still on the hook financially for a replacement for Blitz. Zegan was never intended to be that.
Okay, got hands here. I don't see who went first, so we'll start with Commissioner Payne. Go ahead.
Thank you, Sergeant Kaber. I just want to thank you for your frankness and your honesty here today. And I want to apologize for the loss of your partner in Blitz. I think that is just a travesty and a devastation. I am going to vote to move forward to investigation, but I just want to comment that our job today is not to find any wrongdoing or that there's any violation. It's just to move forward. Our job today is just to determine whether we're going to move forward in an investigation. And it sounds like that you agree that that may actually be a good thing, because we're going to do some more investigation, and that's can always be a good thing. But I just want to recognize your loss and that this is a sad situation. And I want to thank you for appearing before us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Newell.
Thank you. And I'll echo Commissioner Payne's comments there. This is a terrible loss, and we are sorry that 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 happened. If we move into further investigation on this, I'd really like to have more discussion and information on the legislative or administrative interest. And I see in the report that there's a statement from Mr. Clower about how he may not continue pursuing business with Klamath County. And if he has no interest in Klamath County, if that's not one of his bases, then I think we'd have a hard time finding a legislative or administrative intent in the giving of the gift. And so if we move forward, I would like to have more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fiscum. It looks like Vice Chair Fiscum might be frozen. Can you hear us, Vice Chair Fiscum? If you can hear us, you might need to log back in. All right. Any other comments from the commissioners? I see Commissioner Mason, and then we'll go to Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate Mr. Kaber's comments on moving forward with an investigation. I'm not going to support that. I think, we've often seen, some of the political infights in some of these communities. I've never seen one in 7 years over the death of a dog and the replacement of a dog. Definitely comes, obviously, I know that we have to identify an administrative interest, but yeah, I'm just not going to support moving forward on an investigation in this type of gift situation, based on Mr. Kaber's personal story. So I just wanted to articulate that viewpoint.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sergeant, can you tell us a little bit? You mentioned that the dog that your family now has was a dog that could not continue in the police dog training. It for whatever reason didn't pass the tests. Do you know and what typically happens to dogs that cannot complete certification training in this way?
Yeah, I can speak to how Mr. Clower does that. Having, as the coordinator for the sheriff's office, it became important that I understood this. So Mr. Cloward has only a handful of kennels, less than 10 at his facility. He takes orders from organizations and then works with his breeder over in Europe to send dogs over. They do the musculoskeletal and everything that they can. And then he tries to provide about 8 dogs so the vendors can come and purchase and then proceed towards training. If a dog comes in and is not as purported by the vendor in Europe, he doesn't have the time to work that dog out of whatever it is, whether the dog's antisocial or needs more time building confidence. He doesn't have time. He doesn't have time for that. In Zegan's issue, he had a confidence issue. And so kennel space is limited and the big wheels keep on turning, I guess. And he had to move Zegan out. Mr. Cloward has sold those dogs before, and he's also given them away, which he's testified to. In fact, I think during the investigation that was conducted by the county, he said that he had just given one away the day prior. But I was also witness to, in my class alone, a dog that could not complete training that had to be euthanized. So it kind of depends on the aggressiveness of the dog, whether they can give them away, or whether they choose to sell them. Some can be family pets. Some need to be paired with a handler. And in our case, we're an excellent fit for Zegan. I hope that answers that.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to comment on what Commissioner Mason said. And again, emphasize that I do think the factual circumstances here are sympathetic. However, I think our job as a commission is to be even-handed and to, if there's a substantial basis to move forward, I think that that's our job. And I do not think that we can treat people differently if there is a substantial basis to move forward to investigate simply because the facts are sad. And so I, again, will be voting to move forward. even though I do have sympathy for Sergeant Caber's circumstances here, I do think that there was a personal gift here that was accepted over the dollar amount. And I do think education would be a goal of this commission in those circumstances. And so again, even though I sympathize with these circumstances, I do think our job as a commission is not to treat people differently just because those circumstances are sympathetic. And so I will be moving to move this forward to investigation.
Thank you, Commissioner Payne. Commissioner Fiscum, it looks like you're back now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I.
Oh my goodness.
For us. Well, while he's figuring that out, let me tell you where I'm a little torn on this one. I like Sergeant Caber invitation to proceed forward because he wants to take it head on. I think that's good. The thing that I'm torn up on though is that what is the value of the dog that he received? As we all know, fair market value is the value that someone's willing to pay for that, and that really is the determination of the seller. If I can't tell you how much that dog was worth because it doesn't look like he was able to proceed in normal course, so I don't think he was worth top dollars. He's worth something, yes, but it's really what's the value that the seller is willing to let go of that dog, and in this case, it's zero. So that's one issue. The second issue is that the warranty issue is not resolved. It still needs to be resolved. And it looks like it was a gift, but is it a gift to influence the resolution of the warranty? I think that's the question. Is the gift to resolve the issue of the warranty? Will it have an effect on the sheriff's office resolving that warranty?
So I just wanted to clarify our administrative rules and fair market value. That's how we determine what a gift is worth. We don't determine it, and maybe you have the statute, yeah, or the OAR 199-005-0005. Fair market value of the merchandise, goods, or services received shall be used to determine benefit or value. Fair market value is the dollar amount goods or services would bring if offered for sale by a person who desired but was not obligated to sell and purchase by one who is willing but not obligated to buy. So that's how we define that. And the warranty issue is just kind of like a small tenet of the main point. Receiving a gift from a source that has you cannot accept a gift over $50 from a source that has a known legislative or administrative interest. And it looks like Sean has his hand up as well as Commissioner Burke. So I just wanted to add the definition in there because I don't think I fully put that in my presentation. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So just to clarify, you're saying that the warranty issue is still outstanding and consequently it's known and consequently that can still be affected. Is that a good summary?
I think so, yeah. And if it moves to investigation again, looking further into that and how that's occurring, because I don't know exactly how it all works, but that is definitely something we would want to look further to in investigation as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go to Mr. Brady and then we'll go to Commissioner Burke.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to kind of reiterate that the two issues are, what is it a gift? Essentially, was it valued over $50? And then did the person giving the gift have an administrative interest before the person who is receiving the gift or the relative? So in this matter, you have the warranty issue, which is before the sheriff, which is his father, and that's a relative. You also may have an administrative interest before the sergeant as well. So those are the issues that you're looking at, not whether or not the gift was to influence something. That's not an element of the gift clause.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Burke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have two issues here. One, with respect to the value of the dog. I see signs up all the time on the bulletin boards of grocery store of people who are giving away puppies. I go to dog adoption events all the time when you can adopt a dog for free, negligible amount of money. Attaching a value of this dog to this dog, I think, would be largely arbitrary. Essentially, especially since this dog is one that, for whatever reason, was not able to pass the tests that were involved. And so I think we would be groping in the dark to come up with some objective value for this dog, given the market for dogs and the fact that so many are given away or sold at a negligible price that is below $50. The other thing too is that, we do our best in legislation to try and cover as many cases as we can. This is Oregon is, has millions of people living in it, and we try to build laws that cover everything. But, in some cases, even the best laws don't cover everything. It's not a one size fit all thing. And I believe that one of the reasons we're appointed to this board is to show some discretion. I know that we don't want to have a lot of varying standards over here, but I don't think that this kind of a case is the kind that we need to be pursuing. This is a very human situation. This is not a situation, I believe, that deals with the perils that our ethics laws are trying to avoid. And so I'll be with Commissioner Mason on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Burke. Commissioner Mason and Commissioner Fiscom have their hands raised. I note that you have already spoken. I'd like to wrap this conversation up. Commissioner Mason, do you still have a comment to make?
I do, but I'll restrain based on your comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Fiscom, do you still have a comment to make?
Only briefly, Mr. Chair. First, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all I was going to say was to echo Commissioner Burke's. I do not think this is an issue of a sort that was contemplated by Oregon's current gift law. And so when the time comes, I will be no on proceeding any further than we already are. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, we have chopped a lot of wood on this, so let's go ahead and let's make a motion. Candidly, I think I count 3 that are against, and so I would invite one of those that are against to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move to dismiss the charges.
Commissioner Burke has moved to dismiss the complaint. Any comments on the motion, commissioners? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Commissioner Newell,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscom,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
No.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you, Sergeant Caber, for being with us today. The case has been dismissed, and we wish you well, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, it's 10:48. We have 2 blocks of matters to go. I expect those to be 10 to 15 minutes each. I'm personally good continuing. Is there anybody that needs to have a 5-minute break? I don't see any, so let's continue. So let's go first to, we're going to jump to agenda item 46. Mr. Irvin.
He's being admitted now.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Irvin. Thank you for
Good
being
morning.
with us today. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
What a great day to spend with the commission. Thanks for being with us. I realize that was a funny question to ask you. So, hey, my name is Sean Lindsay. I am chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. Now is the opportunity to have your case, your matter heard before us. Procedurally, what's going to happen is Investigator McIntyre is going to give a report to the commission, and we may have some questions of him, and then we will give you a moment to speak as well. We do ask that you be precise and short with your time, because we have a long agenda.
I have
And
to
so
be
with
because I
that-
gotta be on a call in 9 minutes.
Okay, we'll make it quick then. And Investigator McIntyre, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Chair Lindsay and Commission. This is Investigator Andrew McIntyre for the record. Agenda item number 46 is a preliminary review for Greg Irvin, City Councilor for the City of Cottage Grove. This matter concerns the City of Cottage Grove and the process of hiring a new city manager. There were two issues that were brought to the Commission attention. One was that the City Council made a final decision of who to hire as their new city manager in executive session on December 15th, 2023. Complaint also alleged that they hired an officer prior to the public having had an opportunity to comment on the employment of the officer. The executive session Commission staff reviewed the executive session from December 15th, 2023. It was convened under ORS 192.660, subsection 2, subsection little a, which is to consider the employment of a public officer. In order to do so, subsection 7D of the same statute requires that prerequisites be met in order to do that. That includes the public body having advertised the vacancy, adopted regular hiring procedures, the public having had the opportunity to comment on the employment of the officer, and the governing body having adopted hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives in a meeting open to public in which the public has had the opportunity to comment on those. It does appear from review of the record and the information that I received that those prerequisites were in fact met. The commission staff's review of the executive session, though, it does appear that council may have exceeded the scope that was authorized in that executive session. As the Attorney General's manual states, the authority to hold an executive session under that statute does not apply to discussing an officer's salary in connection with the hiring of the officer, nor discussion about benefits. In this case, the council appears to have discussed what they were going to be offering, specifically the officer for compensation, what paid leave to offer him, and other benefits, whether or not to provide a cell phone. There was a lot of specifics that were discussed in that meeting. It also appears, based on what happened after the executive session, that the council in fact did make a final decision. Even though during the executive session, they came to a consensus of who the preferred candidate was. Later on December 22nd, they've issued a press release, and that press release specifically stated that the city council on December 15th selected Michael Sauerwin as the finalist for the city manager position. And the council had a great set of candidates, and they look forward to Mike being Cottage Grove's next city manager. It also stated that the city had signed a letter of intent with Mr. Sauerwine and were commencing the next steps of drafting an employment agreement and making the official appointment. The letter of intent, which was reviewed, also indicates that salary and benefits were negotiated, along with other items such as the start date with Mr. Sauerwine. And that letter appears to be a formal offer letter that was signed by the mayor on behalf of the city council. All of that information combined suggests that council may have made a final decision in executive session. And employment appears to have been offered and a final decision made, and that was done prior to their next open meeting, which was January 8th, 2024. Therefore, based on the information available during this PR, there appears to be a substantial objective basis in this case to believe that the city council executive session meeting may have violated ORS 192.660 subsection 2 by discussing compensation in executive session, and 102.9.660 subsection 6 by in fact making a final decision. And therefore the recommendation is to move the matter to investigation.
Thank you, Investigator McIntyre. Commissioners, in light of Councilor Irvin's need to be on a phone call, I'm going to go ahead and let him respond, and then we can ask questions of both of them, time permitting. Go ahead, Councilor Irvin.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you for your work in this. Make it real brief. I think there was violations. I read now after this and looking at the report that, 192.660 and the sections that were referenced and the Oregon administrative rules, that it's pretty obvious that what went on in that meeting was in violation. And I definitely think it warrants an investigation. I think that meeting should be made public personally.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of Councilor Irvin? Commissioner Thompson?
Counselor, thank you for being here. Just a quick question. Were you guys being advised by legal counsel through this process?
We have a legal counsel through, I think, City Insurance Services that was not present. The acting interim city manager at the time, who was also simultaneously an employee of the recruiting agency that was driving this conversation, apparently does have a law degree and is pretty well experienced, was in that meeting and also participating in this. The whole meeting stunk to me. The whole process stunk, and it sucked to be part of it. And yeah, it was a very uncomfortable position to be in. You know, looking back on it now, I think I realized that I should have probably just walked out. I didn't even know that that was an option necessarily. So, you know, whatever comes of it, if I violated, you know, ethically made a violation, then I'll bear that. But yeah, I think we weren't being advised. It was basically being driven by the recruiting agency to, now we're going to talk about this. Now we're going to talk about this. And I mean, I recall saying, I think we should probably talk to our finance director before we even have this conversation. And that was just shut down. So yeah,
Okay.
let it all come out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Irvin. I know that you have to get to another call. Procedurally, what's going to happen here is we're going to put your matter on hold. We're going to excuse you, and then we'll hear another matter, and then commissioners will come back and make a decision whether to proceed or not on Mr. Irvin's matter.
I want to make
Go ahead.
one other point that is referenced to the thing that you, if there's public comment, and I don't know what actually constitutes public in this case. We had a multi-step process where we wanted to make sure that members of the public at large came to a community forum to give comment when there was interviews being conducted, or not really interviews, but it was like, hey, meet and greet of the candidates. And none of those comments, none of that input came to us in executive session or before. I had to go specifically ask for it, and it fundamentally contradicted the push of the decision that was being made in terms of the candidate, interestingly. And then there was like special selections of people from the city staff, and then from, I think, community stakeholders. So there was kind of 3 different pockets of groups that had their opinions solicited. And those were kind of like aggregated, the city's information and the other. So I'm not sure if that all came out in the investigation, but you know, when you're talking about who was the public, no, we didn't get public input directly that we requested going into this prior to this meeting either. So I don't know if that's relevant. But it was something that really was bothersome to me, that, you know, I was waved off 3 times when I went into the city to try to get that information. And finally, I, by happenstance, connected with the HR director who actually had those on her desk. And so I was able to view them. So, I mean, there's a lot that was going on here that was really bothersome and frustrating. And kind of, yeah, it was like, who's driving this and why? And then look at this, we have all these violations. So, hey.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Okay, we'll excuse you now, Mr. Irvin, and thank you for being with us. All right, commissioners, will now invite in we're going to now handle agenda items 41 through 45 and 47. They have waived confidentiality. Mr. Irvin did not. And so we'll hear those matters together, and we'll let them come in.
I'll respond if they've joined.
Thank you. I
Hello?
see some people coming in. Okay. All right. Good morning. My name is Sean Lindsay. I am the chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And now before us at this time is the opportunity to have your matters heard. I see that Councillor Fleck is here, Councillor Savage, Councillor Stinnett, and Councillor Dreher. And do I see a Councillor Merriday?
Yes, President.
Oh, there you are. I see Councillor Merriday and then Councillor Soulsby.
It'd actually be the mayor.
Yes,
She's on the phone is what I heard. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Procedurally,
Yes, you
what's
did.
going to happen here is that Investigator McIntyre is going to give the commission his report. And then at that time, we will have the opportunity to ask the commissioner or the investigator some questions. And then after that, we're going to give you an opportunity to respond. There's a lot of you to respond. Will there be one spokesperson or all are you going to speak? What is your plan?
I don't
Okay.
know. We actually did not talk
Okay.
about this. As far as I know, I have not spoken with any of my counselors.
That's fine.
They may have talked.
Okay. Well, we have a long agenda and we do want to be efficient with our time. So let's go ahead and we're going to hear Investigator McIntyre. Then we'll turn to you. It would be efficient for us if one of you could be the spokesperson. And then if anybody wants to add anything that the spokesperson said, you'd be welcome to do that. But if you can think about that while he's giving his report, and then I'll turn to you and hopefully one of you can be the mouthpiece for all of you, and we'll go from there. Okay. And then just so you know, after we've had that, the commission will make a decision whether to proceed to investigation or not. That's pretty much what's going to happen today procedurally. Okay, Investigator McIntyre, thank you, and it's your turn. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Chair Lindsay and Commission. This is Investigator Andrew McIntyre for the record. Agenda items number 41 through 45 and number 47 in your meeting book is a preliminary review report for Mike Fleck, Counselor of the City of Cottage Grove, Shalise Savage, also City Councilor, Jonathan Stinnett, City Councilor, Dana Merriday, City Councilor, Alex Dreher, City Councilor, and Candace Soulsby, the Mayor, all for the City of Cottage Grove. This issue concerns the City of Cottage Grove and their hiring of a new city manager. There was two issues that were brought to the Commission's attention in the complaint. One was that the council made a final decision on who to hire as their next city manager in executive session on December 15th of 2023. The complaint also alleged that they hired an officer prior to the public having an opportunity to comment on the employment of the officer. Commission staff reviewed the executive session from December 15, 2023. That executive session was convened under ORS 192660 subsection 2 subsection A, which is to consider the employment of a public officer. In order to do so, subsection 7D of the same statute has to be satisfied, and that requires that certain prerequisites be met in order to do that. And those prerequisites include the public body having advertised the vacancy, adopted regular hiring procedures, the public having had the opportunity to comment on the employment of the officer, and the governing body having adopted hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives in a meeting open to the public in which the public has had the opportunity to comment on these. It does appear that the prerequisites were in fact met, as the consulting firm they hired, GMP Consultants, they did advertise the position national or within, I think it's like 30 different states. They sent it out to a mailing list. They did adopt regular hiring standards. They had a open meeting with the public in order to gather that information, and then those standards were then voted on and approved in a subsequent meeting. It does appear that the public had a meet and greet on December 14th of 2023 with the candidates. Comments were solicited from that. In the executive session the following day, even though the specific comments were not provided to the council, A summary of the comments appeared to have been presented to the council. Whether or not that satisfies public comment, I felt like it did. That could be something the commission determines on that end as well. And then, yeah, they adopted the hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives, like I said, in the meeting open to the public. However, after review of the December 15th executive session, it does appear that the city council exceeded the scope that is authorized in that executive session. Specifically, the Attorney General's manual states that an authority to hold an executive session, in that instance to consider the employment of a public officer, does not apply to discussing an officer's salary in connection with the hiring of the officer, nor discussion about benefits. In this case, the council discussed specifically what to offer the preferred candidate in terms of the salary compensation. They discussed paid leave that was going to be offered and other benefits as well. It also appears that based on information that came out shortly after that executive session, that a final decision was in fact made. The city of Cottage Grove issued a press release on December 22nd, 2023, and that press release stated that the city council on December 15th selected Michael Sauerwin as a finalist for the city manager position. And the council had a great set of candidates, and they look forward to Mike being Cottage Grove's next city manager. It also states the city had signed a letter of intent with Mr. Sauerwine and were commencing the next steps of drafting an employment agreement and making the official appointment. That letter of intent indicates that salary and benefits were in fact negotiated prior to the next open meeting on January 8th of 2024, along with other items were negotiated with that preferred candidate, such as their start date. The letter appears to be a formal offer letter that was signed by the mayor on behalf of the city council. All of this combined suggests that council may have made a final decision in executive session, which is in violation of ORS 192-660, subsection 6. Therefore, based on the information available during this preliminary review, there appears to be a substantial objective basis in this case to believe that the city council executive session meeting on December 15th, 23 may have violated ORS 192.660 subsection 2 by discussing compensation in that meeting, and also 192.660 subsection 6 by making a final decision. And therefore, the report in your meeting book recommends that we move these matters to investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Investigator McIntyre. A couple questions. Again, you'll see this one coming. Joanna Z is the complainant. Can you tell us how she's related to this matter?
I believe the council, one of the individuals there would have a better idea of exactly who she is. City council for Cottage Grove. I believe she is a citizen of Cottage Grove. I believe when I spoke to one of the council members, they indicated she was part of a movement to have the city manager recalled. But I may be mistaken on that. And I think they would have a better idea of who this individual is.
And city councilors, I'll get to you in just a second, but if you'll be prepared to answer that when it's your turn, I'll ask that question again. And then Investigator McIntyre as well. Did they have counsel? Do you know whether they had legal counsel through this process?
I believe they had access to legal counsel. There was a lawyer they had access to. During the executive session itself, the lawyer was not in the room. It was the consultant, and it was also, I believe, the interim city manager, who were kind of advising them on the process and what to discuss.
Okay. Thank you. And the reason why I say that is I have a comment here, and that is, as you know, all of us commissioners on this ethics commission right now, we're all citizen commissioners, just like these counselors. And candidly, we just went through the exact same process of hiring a new executive director, and we needed our hand held the whole way. Otherwise, I would have thrown up all over myself. It's complicated mess. And I think it's unfair for citizen counselors and citizen commissioners to walk on water as they go through this process. So with that said, you kind of know where my gut is at this point. So that said, commissioners, any comments on or any questions for Investigator McIntyre?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Investigator McIntyre. My question is, I think, simple, but if they would have come out of executive session and gone right into regular session and done a vote prior to issuing the press release and all that stuff, would that have changed your recommendation at all?
I believe so. It looks like the executive would like to jump in on this.
That may have solved the 192.660 subsection 6 issue, which is the making the final decision. You would still have the subsection 2 issue, which is you're not allowed to talk about compensation in an executive session.
Thank you for that clarification. Very helpful.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions from any commissioners, we'll now turn to the council. I think I saw Mayor Soulsby speak at one point, but I also see a couple hands raised here. So have you decided who's going to speak for you first, and then we'll answer those questions?
This is Mayor Soulsby. I would
Okay, go ahead.
Love to speak. I wanted to start with saying that, yes, we did hire a recruitment company, and we were told that they specialize in hiring city managers with a combined 180 years local government leadership experience. And they suggested that we go into executive session along with the interim city manager, David Klein, who also has a law degree and over 30 years as a city manager. And so we believed we were in good hands. And I handed the meeting over to the recruiter, GMP, because I'm a first-term mayor, and we had never hired a city manager before. And so this was new territory, and I really wanted to make sure we did it correctly. It's been since December since this executive session, but I believe that our recruiter, I can't remember exactly if it was the recruiter or interim city manager, but I believe it was the recruiter that brought up the salary and benefits for discussion. And I had no reason to believe at the time that we shouldn't be going down that road because, we had our interim city manager, who's an attorney, and GMP that is very versed in what they do. I did question the legalities of all of this after the meeting was over. And so I did call our city attorney to speak with her about it. And I actually called the Ethics Commission as well, spoke with Hillary before this complaint was even filed because I was very concerned. The investigator saw the meeting, and I had a lot of concerns about how things were handled. And then it went into, they said that we had reached a consensus, which was a 5-2. And then the interim city manager and our recruitment company, GMP, composed that press release without any direction from me or council as I know it, but I don't know that for fact. I know I was not involved in that at all. I actually found out that that press release was released on the city website by a constituent that took a screenshot of it and sent it to me. So I emailed the interim city manager questioning the legality of that, because as I knew it, we hadn't had an official vote, and I didn't like the way that looked. It felt very backwards to me. And he and GMP, the recruiters, in writing, which you have as the public records request, wrote back to me and told me it was standard procedure. And I was confused because we hadn't had a official vote. I thought, what if the majority changes their mind? And so that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But again, I was going with the professionals. Then the interim city manager emailed me and told me that he wanted to give me some tips on how to be a more effective mayor. And so I met with him. But when I got there, he had actually brought the contract for the job offer of the city manager at that time, the preferred candidate. And I was not in favor of this candidate, and I didn't like the way this whole procedure was handled. But he told me that it was a consensus of the council and that I had to sign the contract. And I felt like I was signing under duress. And but I did sign. Since then, I have asked permission from the council to review the recruiter's contract because I believe that they may be in breach of contract, and I feel like they've failed us. And as of now, the only one that's officially approved that is Councilor Irvin. But I'm hopeful that going through this experience that it might encourage them to give approval to have the attorney review the recruiter's contract. And I can tell you for myself that I've learned a valuable lesson through this ordeal, and I appreciate the commission. Thank you.
Mayor Soulsby, thank you. Thank you for your transparency. And I thank all the council for being here personally. It looks like some of the hands have been lowered because maybe Mayor Soulsby has addressed a lot of those issues. I don't have any further questions. I mean, except that J&B is maybe is well known now. And so that said, welcome to public service, and we thank you for doing that. Commissioners, any questions for the councilors? Seeing none, I'd like to move forward. I'll tell you where my opinion is. My opinion is I do think that we should proceed forward with investigation, not finding any violation. Let's be mindful of that. And I would really like it to be heavy on the education side to help this council navigate the waters that they're in now and in the future. That's how I'd like to see it go. But that said, any comments from any commissioners?
Mr.
Seeing
Chair.
none, Vice Chair Fiscom, you have a motion.
Give me a signal if you can hear me in my technology qualms today. I apologize. Thank you very much.
We can hear you.
Thank you. I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Mike Fleck from Cottage Grove may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 6, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. And procedure, just so you know, councilors, we're going to go through each one of your individual items and make a decision. And again, the motion is to proceed forward with investigation. There is not a motion to make a determination whether you have made any violation. And any comments on that, commissioners? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscom,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Vice Chair Fiscom, agenda item 42.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Chalice Savage may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 6, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscom,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Vice Chair Fiscom, agenda item 43, please.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Jonathan Stinnett may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments from the commissioners, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 44, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Dana Merryday may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 6, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 45, please.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Ms. Alex Thureher may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 6, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 47, please.
Item 47, Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Ms. Candace Soulsby may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 6, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Newell,
Technology issues. I apologize. Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Mayor and councilors, thank you for being with us today. What we've decided, as I've stated earlier, is we've decided to move to the investigatory stage, which means we're just going to figure out a little bit more facts. And my understanding is that most likely this is going to end up into an educational situation, and as a final resolution, possibly. That's what I anticipate. And we appreciate you very much for your service as counselors and for being with us today. And our staff will be in touch. Thank you. Okay, council or commissioners. I think that's everybody. We'll now move on to agenda item 46. I understand that Mr. Irvin Lex is not going to rejoin. Is that correct, or will he? Okay, he's not rejoining.
Yeah, he has not let us know he will, so.
Okay, so Vice Chair Fiscum, do you have a motion on agenda item 46, please?
Mr. Chair, I do. I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Greg Irvin may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 6, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay. Commission, it's now 11:25:26. We have two more matters to go, except agenda items 48 through 54 will be split up into two. So let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back at 11:31 and let's plow forward. And when we come back, we'll have agenda items 48 through 54, not 52, in the queue, ready to be heard. And I'll see you in 5 minutes. Take a stretch.
Yeah.
All right. I don't see a camera of the commission's room. Oh, there we go. Okay, it looks like we have someone attending at the end of the table there. Who is that?
Hi there.
Audio recording, audio recording.
Yeah, we start on here. Here we go.
Okay, so we're audio recording and we're good to go. We've got Commissioner Payne, Newell, Commissioner Mason, and Vice Chair Fiscom. Are you still on the line?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep, here.
Commissioner Burke?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, we're good to go. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch who's at the end of the table there attending.
My name's Karen Hearn.
Okay, I see there. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, commissioners, we're back on the record here. We will be hearing agenda items 48, 49, 50, 51, 53, and 54 together who have waived confidentiality. And I understand that we have, obviously, we have Counselor Hearn in person in our room, and Lex, do we have any others attending?
Yes, we also have Sherry Kinsey and Alan Pointer attending via Teams and phone. And they are in the room.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you for being with us today. My name's Sean Lindsay. I serve as the chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And procedurally, what's going to happen now is that, let's see here, Investigator Pacheco is going to give the commission his report on his preliminary review. And then the commission may have some questions of him. And then after that, you will have an opportunity to respond to make a statement. Since there's three of you, I would ask that one of you speaks for the three of you, and that you be precise and to the point. We have a long agenda today, and so we'd ask that you be efficient with your time. And so I'd ask that maybe while Investigator Pacheco is giving his report, I would ask that maybe you consider among yourselves who will speak for the three of you. And then, of course, if after that person speaks, then of course you can add to it if needs be. So with that said, we'll go ahead. Investigator Pacheco, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Chair Lindsay and Commissioners. This is Investigator Daniel Pacheco for the record. Agenda item 48 through 51 and 53 and 54 in your meeting book is a preliminary review report for the City of Lakeside Council. The complaint in these matters concerns 3 executive sessions held by the Council on November 21st, November 27th, and December 4th. In relevant part, the executive session was held under ORS 192.660 subsection 2 sub A to consider the employment of a city manager. Before a governing body can convene an executive session under this statute, it must first satisfy the prerequisites in ORS 192.660 sub 7. Specifically, the governing body must have A, advertised the vacancy, B, adopted regular hiring procedures, C, in the case of an officer, the public has had the opportunity to comment on the employment of the officer, and D, in the case of a chief executive officer, the governing body has adopted hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives in meetings open to the public in which the public has had the opportunity to comment on standards, criteria, and policy directives. In this case, a preliminary review was open to determine if the council violated the executive session provisions of public meetings law. The complainant asserts that the councilors failed to follow the prerequisites in RRS subsection 7 sub D by failing to allow public comment on the hiring procedures, standards, and criteria of hiring a chief executive officer, in this case, the city manager. prior to holding each executive session. Based on the information gathered, it appears the counselors did not comply with the requirements of allowing public comment on the hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives of a chief executive officer at its November 21st meeting. Following this meeting, it appears the council attempted to correct this violation on November 27th by holding a public comment period. Afterwards, the council moved to adopt a new resolution establishing hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives for the new city manager position, and as a result, satisfy the prerequisites in ORS subsection 7 sub D. On December 4th, the council held its final special meeting and executive session to interview and appoint the new city manager. After convening, the council moved to open session and offered the position to the city manager position to Rick Hanbon. It appears the council complied with the statutory prerequisites to convene the executive session on this date. It should be noted that each agenda released by the council for the meetings on November 21st, November 27th, and December 4th provided specific opportunities for public comment during each meeting. However, none of the meetings provided a public comment session specific to hiring standards, criteria, and policy directives, which is best practice. Nonetheless, it appears that the general public comment on November 27th complied with the provisions in ORS subsection 7 sub D. As a result, the councilors met the statutory requirements before its executive session on November 27th and December 4th, but not the November 21st executive session. Based on the information available, there appears to be a substantial objective basis to believe that the City of Lakeside Council violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7 on November 21st. The recommendation in your books is to move this case to investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Investigator Pacheco. Question from me is Michael Armstrong is the complainant, and can you tell how he's related on this?
Yes, my understanding in speaking to the counselors is that he is a resident that lives there about half the year, and then the other part of the year he resides in Texas. But he's a resident of the area.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any comments or questions for Investigator Pacheco? Seeing none, we'll now turn to the respondents. And who do you think will be speaking for you?
I would suggest Mr. Pointer, as he's the longest term counselor on the council. I'm relatively new and was going by the recommendations of the city lawyer and the present or the former city manager.
Okay.
So, Mr. Pointer.
Does that work for you, Mr. Pointer?
It does.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, we felt we did things properly. We used the same procedures we'd used in previous city manager hiring that we've done. I've been there this is the fourth city manager, and we've done the same thing every time. Our city manager thought this was the way it should be done, and that's what we did. Beyond that, there was an issue in the November 21st meeting and I objected to that we didn't do enough public hearing, and we did try to go back and correct that in the November 27th meeting. That's about all I can tell you about it.
Okay, thank you. And all right, does anybody else want to make any other comments? Councillor Hearn, do you want to add anything, or is that sufficient?
It's pretty sufficient. We went with the previous hiring procedures. We were in touch with the city lawyer at the time. And as far as we know, we tried to rectify any mistakes we did make. And we just did our best we could.
Thank you. And Mayor Kinsey, is there anything that you would like to add? Okay, hearing none. Commissioners, any questions that you might have of the respondents?
I didn't know I was unmuted. I was muted, sorry.
Okay, Mayor Kinsey, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, we were all new, except for Councilor Pointer and Councilor Miller, and we did what we thought was right based on our city attorney and our previous city manager. But we really weren't in office that long, so it was kind of hard, but we did try to rectify anything that we had done incorrectly. So
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Commissioner Thompson, you had a question.
Just a question for either Executive Director Miles or Investigator Pacheco. My understanding from listening to the counselors and the mayor is that they followed the advice of legal counsel. Does that mean our rule that as far as we can go as a letter of education stands?
Yes, there is in the penalty matrix and in the statute that if they are acting on advice of counsel, the sanction cannot be more than a letter of education.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments? I'll just say something. As you might know, this entire Oregon Government Ethics Commission, we're all citizen commissioners as well. After this meeting, I'll go back to my desk job. And we also just went through a very similar situation where we just hired a new executive director, and we did the best we could as well, and we relied heavily on counsel, and so I personally appreciate the circumstances in which you're experiencing now. So that said, I personally also agree it'd be nice to proceed procedurally to just iron out some facts and most likely end up in a letter of education, and that's where I stand personally. But open the floor to any other commissioners that want to make a comment or a motion.
Mr. Chair, I will move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Sherry Kinsey may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comment on the motion? And just to be clear for the respondents, this is a motion, not a motion to find any violation. It's simply a motion to proceed forward with the investigation. And that's where we find. So seeing no other comments from commissioners, we will call for the vote.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Oh, thumbs up.
Give us
for
a thumbs up or
Howard.
not.
thumbs up.
His mic went out again.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 49, please.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Tom Miller may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you for the motion. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
We didn't hear you.
Too quick then.
May-
Aye.
Maybe give us a thumbs. There we go.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right. Commissioner Fiscum, Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 50, please.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Mr. Alan Pointer may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7, that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Burke,
Thumbs up.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 51, please.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Ms. Karen Hearn may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7, that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. And we'll call for the vote, please, Molly.
Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Vice Chair Fiscum, agenda item 53, please.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Kimberly Ritter may have violated ORS 19.
Oh, no.
Looks like he went out. Can you hear us, Vice Chair Fiscum? All right. Commissioner Thompson, since you're there, are you able to make a motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Since you've got the motion book there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move that the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Kimberly Ritter may have violated ORS Chapter 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you kindly. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay. Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum.
He is back online.
He might have dropped off again, actually.
Oh, he's joining right now.
Vice Chair Fiscum, we are calling for the vote on the motion that you were going to make. Commissioner Thompson made it. There we go. Thumbs up.
All right, Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson. Agenda item 54.
Mr. Chair, I hereby move the commission find there is a substantial objective basis for believing that Nikki Wood may have violated ORS 192.660 sub 2 and ORS 192.660 sub 7, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Thank you. Seeing no comments, we'll call for the vote, please.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke,
Thumbs up.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiscum,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Kinsey and Councilor Hearn and Councilor Pointer for being with us today. We've made a decision to move forward. Staff will be in contact with you, and you have a good day, and we'll dismiss you now at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know that your guys' electronics are kind of wonky like our electronics.
Absolutely. True of everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Okay, commissioners, we're now on to agenda item 52, which is related. And it looks like she is no response, correct? Okay, so we can, I would like to rely on your prior report that you gave already. We can do that, correct? Yes, okay, good. Commissioner
For the
Thompson,
record, for the record, we're relying on legal counsel when we do that.
did I see a head nod from Sean?
There was no head nod. I mean, I think the report is in the record. You're relying on the report that's in the record, and that is fine.
All
He
right.
will be my attorney whenever I'm stuck in a pickle. That was perfect. Great response. All-time response. All right, Commissioner Thompson, 52.
I hereby move that the commission find there is substantial objective basis for believing that Jackie Smith may have violated ORS Chapter 192.660 Sub 2 and ORS 192.660 Sub 7, and that the commission should investigate accordingly.
Excellent. Thank you. Seeing no comment, we'll call for the vote. Please, Molly.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiskum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Burke, thumbs up, Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, we are now onto agenda item 55. Sean Fitzpatrick. Looks like
Yeah,
he'll
so-
be attending via Teams or.
Yep, so a couple things here, just remembering, he is hard of hearing, so anyone in the room, microphones pick up, he's relying on captions, so just try to keep that to a minimum. We do have someone waiting in the lobby that's just under meeting guest. We have not confirmed with him. We could let him in and verbally confirm if he'd like to.
Okay, that's fine. And then I'm assuming we need to speak pretty slowly as well for captions to capture us? Or just not super fast?
It clearly, there should be just clearly, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, and he did actually just confirm that this is him, so we are letting Mr. Fitzpatrick in now.
Okay, thank you.
There we are.
All right. Hello, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Can you, or Mayor Fitzpatrick, I should say, can you see and hear us?
I can see you. Yes, thank you. And I am going to switch on the live captions.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Got them. Thank you.
All right, let's give this a test. Is it working for you as I speak?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Sean Lindsay, and I serve as the chair of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission. And what we will do today is we will proceed to have Investigator Walker give her report to the commission. The commission may have some questions of her. And then in addition to that, we will give you an opportunity to respond if you wish, keeping in mind that the recommended action is to move to dismiss. And then we may have some questions of you if you choose to respond. And with that said, we'll proceed. I do want to note that Commissioner Burke has now departed. Looks like he has departed, or he is departing. I'm sorry, Commissioner Burke, can you clarify? Are you leaving now? Okay, thank you. Well, Commissioner Burke will be departing, and that means we have 5 commissioners now, if you'll note that. And with that said, Investigator Walker, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Lindsay and Commissioners. For the record, this is Monica Walker, investigator for the Commission. Agenda item 55 in your meeting books is a preliminary review report for an ethics case involving Sean Fitzpatrick, Mayor of the City of Astoria. Attending with Mayor Fitzpatrick today is his wife, Ann Fitzpatrick, who is assisting Mayor Fitzpatrick with closed captioning. The complaint alleges that Mayor Fitzpatrick may have violated the use of office and conflict of interest provisions by participating in discussions and debates to improve a downtown City of Astoria property called Heritage Square that could affect the property value of Mayor Fitzpatrick's own commercial business rental property that is located across the street from Heritage Square. These discussions took place during the May 1st, November 6th, and December 4th, 2023 council meetings. According to the complaint, Mr. Fitzpatrick failed to disclose a potential conflict of interest before participating in discussions and taking official action in regard to redeveloping the Heritage Square property during the 3 City of Astoria Council meetings. From staff's review of the documentation received, it appears that the City Council only listened to presentations, discussed, and made recommendations as to implementing a plan for the possible improvements to and renovation of Heritage Square during the 3 meetings. Specifically, during the May and November meetings, Mayor Fitzpatrick did not make any decisions, recommendations, votes, or take any action that could or would cause a personal financial benefit or avoidance of a financial benefit to himself or a business with which he is associated. Mayor Fitzpatrick simply introduced the presenters and conducted the management of the questions from councilors. As a result, it appears there was no conflict of interest disclosure on the part of Mayor Fitzpatrick. Just lost my place. during those meetings, the May and November meeting. And it was not required that he disclose a conflict of interest. For the December meeting, a decision was made to form a work group to negotiate a partnership agreement with a local nonprofit related to future uses for Heritage Square. Establishing an agreement with the nonprofit would not pose a conflict to Mayor Fitzpatrick in itself. Thus, it appears Mayor Fitzpatrick would not be required to declare a conflict of interest on that basis. Also, there is no information in the documentation gathered to indicate that the work group was to do anything more than draft an agreement with the nonprofit for presentation to the City Council at a later date. Should Mayor Fitzpatrick be faced with any potential or actual conflicts of interest during the negotiation of that agreement, Mayor Fitzpatrick would have to properly declare them per ORS 244120 subsection 2 at that time. For the actions taken at the December meeting, however, it appears no conflict existed for Mayor Fitzpatrick. As far as Mayor Fitzpatrick's involvement and actions constituting a prohibited use of office in violation of ORS 244040 subsection 1, the proposal to draft an agreement with the nonprofit do not appear to be actions that could provide Mayor Fitzpatrick with a financial benefit to himself or to a business with which he is associated that would not otherwise be available but for the holding of his position as mayor and a member of City Council. Thus, it appears Mayor Fitzpatrick did not violate the prohibited use of office provisions. Therefore, it appears there is no substantial objective basis in this case to believe that violations of the prohibited use of office and conflict of interest statutes may have occurred. Therefore, the report that is in your meeting books recommends dismissal of this case.
Thank you, Investigator Walker. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any comments of Investigator Walker? Seeing none, Mayor Fitzpatrick, you're welcome to make a statement if you would like. You don't need to if you don't want to either.
So, yeah, thank you, Chairman Lindsay, and commissioners for your time today. I'd like to show my appreciation for Inspector Walker or Investigator Walker in doing the investigation and also in working with me to accommodate my hearing impairment. I want the commission to know that I agree with her findings. However, I took this complaint very seriously. And during my 9 years on the Planning Commission, I felt very comfortable with my knowledge of and understanding of government ethics laws and made disclosures during virtually every meeting of the Astoria Planning Commission. And after the election, but before being sworn in as the mayor, I met with our city attorney again to review my requirements for disclosures. And from those discussions, I believed and still believe that I have a firm grasp of what I need to disclose and when I need to disclose. And often I go above and beyond in my disclosures just to avoid any questions. And prior to meeting with the Friends of the Heritage Square, I again spoke with our city attorney, who assured me that there would be no conflict of interest if I worked with the committee on forming a group to study improvements to the Heritage Square. And other than that, if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If the commission would like me to expand on my record of disclosure in 9 years on the planning commission, I'd be willing to do that. And if the commission is inclined to agree with the investigators' recommendations, then I don't feel that I need to take any more of your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Commissioners, any questions of Mayor Fitzpatrick? Seeing none, Vice Chair, Commissioner Thompson, not knowing what Vice Chair Fisk is.
I want to do this motion, please. Commissioner Thompson can step back because I'm ready.
Okay, we've got an anxious Vice Chair ready to make a motion. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
For helping me. Mr. Chair, I move that the commission find that the complaint and information available during preliminary review appears to be insufficient to constitute a substantial objective basis for believing that Sean Fitzpatrick has violated provisions in government ethics law and that doesn't warrant further review, and that this complaint be dismissed.
Commissioners, any comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Please, Molly.
Commissioner Newell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mason,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Fiskum,
Aye.
Commissioner Payne,
Aye.
Chair Lindsay.
Aye.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you. Mayor Fitzpatrick, thank you for being with us today. The case is dismissed. Our staff will send confirmation of that, and we wish you a very good day and weekend.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, Commission, we are done with the executive session portion of the meeting, and we are now hereby back into open session, and we'll give